Once again, reading from the Jerusalem Bible. This is Genesis chapter 37. But Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. The story of Joseph. Joseph and his brothers. This is the story of Joseph. Joseph was 17 years old. As he was still young, he was shepherding the flock with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. Joseph informed their father of the evil spoken about them. Israel loved Joseph more than all his other sons, for he was the son of his old age. And he had a coat with long sleeves made for him. But his brothers, seeing how his father loved him more than all his other sons, came to hate him so much that they could not say a civil word to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and he repeated it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "to this dream I have had. We were binding sheaves in the countryside, and my sheaf, it seemed, rose up and stood upright. Then I saw your sheaves gather round and bow to my sheaf." "So you want to be king over us," his brothers retorted, "or to lord it over us?" And they hated him still more on account of his dreams and of what he said. He had another dream which he told to his brothers. "Look, I have had another dream," he said. "I thought I saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing to me." He told his father and brothers, and his father scolded him. "A fine dream to have." He said to him, "Are all of us then, myself, your mother, and your brothers, to come and bow to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the thing in mind. Joseph sold by his brothers. His brothers went to pasture their father's flock at Shechem. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers with the flock at Shechem? Come, I am going to send you to them." "I am ready," he replied. He said to him, "Go and see how your brothers and the flock are doing, and bring me word." He sent him from the valley of Hebron, and Joseph arrived at Shechem. A man found him wandering in the countryside, and the man asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I am looking for my brothers," he replied. "Please tell me where they are pasturing their flock." The man answered, "They have moved on from here. Indeed, I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they made a plot among themselves to put him to death. "Here comes the man of dreams," they said to one another. "Come on, let us kill him and throw him into some well. We can say that a wild beast devoured him. Then we shall see what becomes of his dreams." But Reuben heard, and he saved him from their violence. "We must not take his life," he said. "Shed no blood," said Reuben to them. "Throw him into this well in the wilderness, but do not lay violent hands on him," intending to save him from there and to restore him to his father. So when Joseph reached his brothers, they pulled off his coat, the coat with the long sleeves that he was wearing, and catching hold of him, they threw him into the well, the empty well with no water in it. They then sat down to eat. Looking up, they saw a group of Ishmaelites who were coming from Gilead, their camels laden with gum, tragacanth, balsam, and resin, which they were taking down into Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain by killing our brother and covering up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let us not do any harm to him. After all, he is our brother and our own flesh." His brothers agreed. Now some Midianite merchants were passing. and they drew Joseph up out of the well. They sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 silver pieces, and these men took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben went back to the well, there was no sign of Joseph. Tearing his clothes, he went back to his brothers. "The boy has disappeared," he said. "What am I going to do?" They took Joseph's coat, and slaughtering a goat, they dipped the coat in the blood. Then they sent back the coat with long sleeves and had it taken to their father with the message, "This is what we have found. Examine it and see whether or not it is your son's coat." He examined it and exclaimed, "It is my son's coat. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has been the prey of some animal and has been torn to pieces." Jacob, tearing his clothes and putting on a loincloth of sackcloth, mourned his son for a long time. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will go down in mourning to Sheol beside my son." And his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials and commander of the guard. Chapter 38, the story of Judah and Tamar. It happened at that time that Judah left his brothers to go down and stay with an Adullamite called Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a Canaanite called Shua. He made her his wife and slept with her. She conceived and gave birth to a son whom she named She conceived again and gave birth to a son whom she named Onan. Yet again she gave birth to a son whom she named Shelah. She was at Chesed when she gave birth to him. Judah took a wife for his firstborn and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, offended Yahweh greatly, so Yahweh brought about his death. Then Judah said to Onan, "Take your brother's wife and do your duty as her brother-in-law to produce a child for your brother." But Onan, knowing the child would not be his, spilt his seed on the ground every time he slept with his brother's wife to avoid providing a child for his brother. What he did was offensive to Yahweh, so he brought about his death also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Return home as a widow to your father and wait for my son Shelah to grow up." For he was thinking, he must not die like his brothers. So Tamar went back home to her father. A long time passed, and then Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. After Judah had been comforted, he went up to Timnah to the men who sheared his sheep, himself and Hira, his Adullamite friend. This was reported to Tamar. "Listen, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah for the shearing of his sheep." She therefore changed her widow's clothes, wrapped a veil around, and sat down, heavily swathed, where the road to Enaim branches off the road to Timnah. Shelah had now grown up, as she saw, and yet she had not been given to him as his wife. Judah, seeing her, took her for a prostitute, since her face was veiled. Going up to her on the road, he said, "Come, let me sleep with you." He did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. "What will you give me to sleep with me?" she asked. "I will send you a kid from the flock," he answered. "Agreed, if you give me a pledge until you send it," she answered. "What pledge shall I give you?" he asked. "Your seal, your cord, and the stick you are holding," she answered. He gave them to her and slept with her, and she conceived by him. Then she rose and left him, and taking off her veil, she put on her widow's weeds. Judah sent the kid by his Adulamite friend to recover the pledge from the woman, but he did not find her. He inquired from the men of the place, "Where is the prostitute who was by the roadside at Enaim?" "There has been no prostitute there," they answered. So returning to Judah, he said, "I did not find her. What is more, the men of the place told me there had been no prostitute there." "Let her keep what she has," Judah replied, "or we shall become a laughingstock. At least I sent her this kid, even though you did not find her." About 3 months later, it was reported to Judah, "Your daughter-in-law has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is pregnant as a result of her misconduct. Take her outside and burn her," said Judah. But as she was being led off, she sent this message to her father-in-law: "It was the man to whom these things belong who made me pregnant. Look at them," she said, "and see whose seal and cord and stick these are." Judah examined them and then said, "She is in the right rather than I. This comes of my not giving her to my son Shelah to be his wife. He had no further intercourse with her." When the time for her confinement came, she was found to have twins in her womb. During the delivery, one of them put out a hand, and the midwife caught it and tied a scarlet thread to it, saying, "This is the first to arrive." But he drew his hand back, and it was his brother who came out first. Then she said, "What a breach you have opened for yourself." So he was named Perez. Then his brother came out with the scarlet thread on his hand, so he was named Zerah.